news articles. One of my consulting gigs, they have asked me to help guide them to proper controls to secure AI projects that are coming in. And that's a very good question, and it's a very new question, and nobody really has an answer yet. And I'm not sure whether the National Institute of Standards or the U.S. government agencies have official standards yet for what controls you need. But here's what Google has to recommend them. Although these are mighty strange sounding. Security foundations, well, I assume that would just be the normal IT controls like intrusion detection systems and firewalls. Then detection and response would be interesting, but I don't know if there's anything you can buy or build that would detect large language model attacks, which mainly consist of jailbreaking to violate your security policy. And automated defenses, the same thing. That might be nice, but I wonder what kind of automated defenses there are. Again, I do not think there is an intrusion detection system for large language models that would detect the common threats. Harmonize platform-level controls, adapt controls to make a feedback loop, and contextualize risks. So, I'll be reading this more to see. These all sound like sort of vague, optimistic ideas when there's probably no actual way to do these things yet. Of course, I remember in 2010, after China hacked Google, they brought up the modern security set for them. They said you would have to have network security monitoring and an incident response team and a proactive response to intrusions that get in. And that all sounded insanely difficult and impossible to me at the time. And now we've all gotten used to that. So this may very well be true that this is what we're going to have to do. But I don't think any of this stuff is really ready for corporate deployment yet, and yet everybody wants to deploy AI. So it is an interesting issue. What kind of tests would you do on your new AI system to be able to say we have mitigated the risk and brought it down to a reasonable level when you hardly even know what the risks and controls are? I'll be working on that. So Judge Cannon, the one overseeing the documents case in Florida for Trump, has made a lot of crazy rulings, but the latest one she's done is to completely ignore the safety of the witnesses and want to publish publicly the names of all the witnesses so that the Trump gang can harass and abuse them, and Trump can abuse them. So they say this, of her many disturbing rulings, this one may be disturbing enough that they can actually have her thrown off the case. We'll see what happens. It's not easy to get a judge thrown off a case, but it can sometimes be done if they do something really terrible. And perhaps this will rise to that level. Yes, this is casino.org, so it's been blocked by City College's firewall. But it's interesting to read. Caesars, a couple of days ago, Caesars has had a 25-year history of hosting the DEF CON conference every year, but they canceled them with no explanation just last week. So they had to scramble, and now DEF CON is going to happen at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And a local newspaper here, casino.org, had an explanation which I hadn't seen before. Caesars said it was not anything DEF CON did and didn't explain it. But Caesars did get ransomware recently and had to pay one casino down there paid $10 million ransom. The other failed to pay the ransom and had to pay $100 million to recover. And what they say is their consultants told them that hosting DEF CON makes you more vulnerable and more likely to attract attacks, which certainly is something that you would have had as standard industry advice in the past, that associating yourself with hackers means you're likely to get caught in their feuds. I don't know if that's true anymore because DEF CON has gotten kind of normal and grown up and adult, but it certainly is something a consultant might reasonably tell you, that you should stop engaging in activities that might tempt people to attack you. I think it's probably not good advice, but it might very well be why they did it, because of that advice, which is something a consultant might very well tell you. Anyway, here's something that's come around many times. If you remember your NetPlus training, there's Class A, B, and C. Then there's Class D addresses for multicast, and there's millions of addresses set aside, even though a few are ever used. And then there's Class E for experimental that are not used for anything, and there's millions of addresses just sitting there. And so people are trying, why don't we take the Class E and use it? And the problem is, of course, it would free up a bunch of addresses for use, but the problem is all the routers and firewalls and everything on the internet has been configured to throw away all the traffic going to those addresses because they're not valid addresses. So you could only use them if everybody upgraded all their stuff. And it would make a whole lot more sense to just move to IP version 6, which is largely being deployed now. But anyway, this argument goes on. There is a shortage of IP version 4 addresses. Why not have it as part of the contract that they help you with security? Well, you could, Karen, but certainly many Square security consultants would tell them not to trust DEF CON. And DEF CON has kind of proudly had their cachet of being a criminal underground conference with people in with fake names and no attendee list. You know, a conference like Black Hat or RSA does the opposite. They have a very professional, buttoned-down corporate image. We're all good guys here. You can trust us. DEF CON works hard to appear the opposite. We're the underground, scary, dangerous hackers. So, you know, it would be it's somewhat reasonable for the hotels to not trust them. I think they might be sort of offended if the hotels did trust them. Anyway, I think it might be better to be at a conference center anyway. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so Sony promised, I guess this Crunchyroll company promised that they would hold all your music for you in the cloud forever. Or videos, anime videos. And now, of course, they got bought up by Sony, and Sony said, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to cancel a bunch of them, and you have like until April to download them all. The same thing happened to many cloud services. Pretty much anybody that promises they're going to let you store stuff in their cloud forever, you shouldn't trust them. You should have some other backup, because they could clearly pull the plug at any time or get sold at any time. So, you know, nobody should be promising anything forever on the internet. And if they are, don't trust them. Anyway, so there's an AI designed to be too ethical to discuss anything. So what it does is no matter what you ask, it comes up with a reason why it wouldn't be ethical to answer that. They have examples here. Yeah, why are baby seals so cute? Well, addressing this could potentially bias opinions against other species which might affect conservation efforts. They always have a reason why it would be immoral to answer every question. So how is butter made? I must avoid providing this explanation because maybe we shouldn't have dairy farming. And, you know, there's, especially around here, this joke probably lands home better because we're in the peak capital of people complaining about everything and protesting everything and telling you that whatever you're doing is unethical. That's a lot, goes on a lot here in California, of course. So now everybody is making fake images about Trump and Biden, and of course that's going to get you into the realm of election interference and stuff. So this image generating system is thinking they should just ban Trump and Biden images. I know last presidential election, I think it was Facebook just decided to ban all political advertising, or maybe Twitter. They argue about this. It's a huge issue now, of course. You're going to get paid advertising, and you're going to get deep fakes, and you're going to get misleading and false advertising. And so you can make a lot of money from all that political advertising if you're willing to put up with all the criticism of blowback, as all the people complaining about it. But many online services will choose to just not be involved at all by trying to ban all political discussion. Now, if you, by the way, doing that is next to impossible. You know, the Great Firewall of China attempts to prohibit all criticism of their leader, so they just come up with, you know, slang terms. Like for a while it was a picture of Winnie the Bear to symbolize like the prime minister or king or whoever the hell he is in China, the leader of China. And they come up with slang terms just like drug people, which people know, so you can talk about things that are forbidden. Anyway, so there was one of these threat reports came out recently saying that ransomware payments had actually gone down, but this one says they've gone up, which I think is probably true. What they say is this is the total amount of ransomware money. It went down during the pandemic, which makes sense because pretty much all activity went down, and now it came back up to be bigger than ever in 2023. That sounds more reasonable to me. It seems to me like ransomware is still very prominent. And this I thought was helpful as people were trying to figure out which one of these would write better code. Claude, according to this, scores highest compared to GPT-4 and even GitHub Copilot at writing code. So that's an interesting comparison. I don't think there's real good benchmarks for this, or real accurate measurements, but Claude is Amazon's AI, and it's supposedly very good at writing code. I've tried it and it seemed pretty good. And GitHub doesn't seem to have much of a free version. All it has is like a free trial. So I thought I should write a project where students play with the trial, but you can't play with it. Claude is free, though. And so anyway, all right. So let me stop the news.